Okay. So to start with, I'm sure you all will agree that the relationship that education and work, that is the labor market, has carried over all these years is not something new. And more particularly when it comes to higher education and the labor market connect, there are specific theories which explain the skills differential challenge leading to labor market imperfections, starting from the very concept of homogeneous labor, where it was assumed that every labor has similar kind of characteristics and therefore there does not need to be any kind of a wage differential. But then we move to the neoliberal market mechanisms where skill differentials assumed greater importance, and there the connect between higher education and labor market became all the more complex. However, it was later, much later, when the human capital theory was conceived and was appreciated all across the globe. I'm sure all of you have read about the human capital theory given by Schulz and Becker, which not only talks about this very important connection between investments in education and economic growth, but it also talks about the overall human development that takes place when this kind of the connectivity between education and economic growth is deepened by right kind of investments being made in the education sector. So it was the advent of the human capital theory which uh, strengthen the relationship, understanding of the relationship, I should say, between education and the economic growth and economic development. However, it was later in the current century when the new wave of linking education to work took a front seat. In the traditional knowledge market, it was assumed that the higher education sector is meant only to create and disseminate knowledge. But it was in the later part of the current century that the emerging labor market needs and also the evidences of higher salaries, better quality of job with higher levels of education, that not just higher education started getting precedence over elementary and secondary or school level of education, but also investments in higher education started gaining predominance across the globe. Also, one can see there has been a global shift from elementary to higher and vocational education. There has also been a shift from access to learning to completion and more towards employability. So it was in 2001 when the United Nations, in particular, made employability as one of its four priorities for national policy action on youth employment. So when employability was made as one of the important pillars, there was a kind of a confusion that emerged in the minds of not just the policymakers but also the practitioners. What kind of a confusion was that? So if you read through the literature or when you talk to a layman, it is always found that employment and employability is understood to be the same thing. So when you talk to people, employment and employability will come together and they are many a times used interchangeably. But that is actually not the case. Now, what is it then that are the current century expectations from the universities and how they are getting translated into this different meaning of employment and employability? Let us look at some of the comments or the definitions that have been given by committees, commissions, or certain reports, which are largely referred to in the literature and also in the policy domain. Uh, Let us look at what the Deering report said in 1997. So the first expectation from the universities is not just to educate, but build expertise, participate in development of knowledge, ensure that both knowledge created and the experts educated are relevant to society. So we are going beyond creation of knowledge to creating those kind of educated individuals who give more to the society, or that kind of knowledge creation which is more relevant to the society. Let us look at the second definition. The second expectation is to create imaginative and creative scholars who have at their fingertips not just the relevant disciplinary understanding and skills, but also soft or generic skills that enable the disciplinary base to be deployed to optimal effect. So it is here that they often talked about practical exposure or field exposure or real life work exposure, all those kind of things which are now finding space in the policy dialogues and also in the higher education curricula, etc., is taking base from. Let us look at something, another one, which says that both cognitive and non-cognitive attributes and skills in a knowledge framework. This is what the universities expect to deliver, both cognitive and non-cognitive attributes in a skills in a knowledge framework. So we are not shying away from creating knowledge or disseminating knowledge. It is only this, that our responsibilities are now going beyond that particular classic understanding of universities services, and it is going to now uh, incorporate the employability skills. So the most popular and largely accepted definition of employability is given by York, which was again redefined by him in 2006, which says that it is a set of achievements. Now, achievements in what sense? Achievements on skills, understandings, and personal attributes that make graduates more likely to gain employment and be successful in their chosen occupations, which benefits themselves, the workforce, the community, and the economy at large. So if we have to just break this particular definition into small parts, what is it that we take out from here? So the universities are expected to deliver skills, understandings, and personal attributes. So they are, in a way, expected to deliver a very holistic insights and holistic personality development for the students, so that the graduates are not only successful in their chosen occupation. So it is not just about getting a job and being successful in your jobs, but it should also be so that you are able to help others rise further. So it is also for the workforce, the community, and the economy at large. So it is also from here that the very idea of universities also being seats of delivering entrepreneurship education has taken precedence from here. Now, why all of this is becoming more and more important? Because as you all know, that the job market, especially the government sector, is shrinking. And now with lesser and lesser jobs and more graduates coming into the labor market, it is always a tussle between more of supply and less of demand from the employer segment. And that is the very reason as to why the very idea about, if the graduates are not being demanded by the employers, how is it that they can demand themselves? So in order to demand your own labor, it is very important for you to become an entrepreneur. So these kind of entrepreneur skills also become added to the employability skills. Now that is why we say that employment and employability are not to be understood to be the same thing, but employability is defined as individuals' preparedness for the world of work incomplete. So if employment is to be understood as something where a student can seek a job, so if you get a job, you are employed. But if When employability is to be understood, it is simply this, that you should have a mix of all kinds of skills, attitudes, and attributes which will help you to sustain yourself in the long term in the highly dynamic and very competitive labor market. We will all agree that why do we call the labor market to be extremely dynamic? Now, if you look at the kind of industrial revolution that has happened over a period of past 40 years, we began with the 1.0 industrial revolution, and today we are talking about 4.0 and 5.0 industrial revolution. The 4.0, that is the fourth industrial revolution, is nothing but a greater degree of technological integration with the production and processes, the production processes per se. But what is very important over here is to understand is the pace at which these recent revolutions are taking place. And that is the reason as to why we say the kind of skills which are in demand by the employers are changing at a pace as has never happened before. It is an unprecedented rate at which new and new skill sets are being added to the labor market by the employers each and every day. And that is how the concept of employability skills has now moved to uh, what is known as sustainable employability skills. So, what are these, or how do we understand that very concept of sustainable employability? I'll very quickly run through some of these points. So, sustainable employability may be understood as the ability to gain initial employment. It is also the ability to maintain employment and make transitions. It is the ability to obtain new employment if required. So you will completely agree with me. Today, the youth, the kind of job hopping, if we call it in a very common kind of a language parlance, the kind of job hopping that is happening today, the kind of transitions that the youth today wish to make from one sector to the other sector. It is not just that they are transitioning from one company to the other company, but they are open and they are willing and they are in fact more eager to even shift from one sector to the other sector if the need be, and if there are better opportunities. So those kind of transitions, that also is a part of sustainable employability, whether it be need driven or whether it be voluntary on the part of the graduate youth. Uh, the next thing that we talk about is the ability to rise higher and higher in the employment ladder. So career development and career management skills as to how you will enrich yourself as you grow higher and higher in your occupation. Those are also kind of things that are added in the sustainable employability model or concept. More importantly, it is also the quality of work or employment. So often you would hear that a person who is graduate is working as a driver. So there was this concept of over education and under education in the earlier theoretical domain. And today we are now talking about, it is not just about lower cadre of work that a person is doing. So maybe it is not just about a driver doesn't require a graduation degree. And therefore we are saying that he is overeducated. But today we are talking about the quality of work or employment in which an educated youth is indulging or is engaged in. And when we say quality of work, a person who has a college degree may be employed in the formal sector, in the private sector, in the informal sector, or in the regular sector. But whether in any of these sectors, if the kind of working environment that he is in, the kind of satisfaction that he is deriving from his work, if those are the kind of things that that are available to him, then we say that the quality of work or employment is good for that person. So that may also differ from person to person, but in general, if you are in a low paid, undesirable, or unsustainable jobs, then the quality of that kind of a job is not considered to be good. Now, this is also a part of sustainable employability concept. The next one is the ability to remain employable throughout life. Uh, Now, this is something uh, I'm sure many of us might have experienced also. Otherwise, when you look at the whole labor market around yourself, you will often find layoffs happening. Layoffs are happening the way the layoffs have happened during the pandemic. It may be because of the pandemic, so it is an external shock. It may be an unforeseen kind of a calamity, whether it be economic catastrophe, whether it be natural catastrophe, whether it be social catastrophe, whatever it be. But it may lead to some kind of a disruption in your employment. Now, how is it so that you are able to get a re-employment, or you are able to continue working in a productive fashion, is what is meant by sustaining oneself gainfully, throughout life. And this also becomes part of the sustainable employability concept. And lastly, most importantly, the ability to create employment is something to what I just referred a few minutes back. If you are not being demanded by the labor market, can you yourself create employment, not just for yourself, but also for a couple of others by entering into some kind of an entrepreneurial activity? So these are this in fact is the overall idea about sustainable employability. And therefore, if we are talking about the sustainability of higher education institutions to be linked to create that kind of a sustainable, the employable youth, then the long-term sustainability of the higher education institutions become a function of quality of outcomes. So there was a time when we were more concerned about the inputs, the processes, but today we are saying that the sustainability of the higher education institutions depends more on the quality of the outcomes. And what are these outcomes and outputs? The quality of outcome and outcomes is nothing but the quality of student learning and the kind of employability skills that are being granted to them when they are on campus. Now, for all this to happen, the way that is desired and the way that is expected of the higher education sector depends upon how the institutions are able to manage their capital. Now, I've taken this word from the Greek italics, the five capital that are in a way stock of a higher education institution, and how can these stocks be converted into flows is the challenge that the institutions are facing today. And what are those five capitals that exist? Manufactured capital, if you look at this particular, let me try to show you. Yeah. So if you look at this particular diagram out here, uh, there are five capitals are mentioned: the manufactured capital, the financial capital, the human capital, the natural capital, and the social capital. Now, these, what are these? Manufactured capital, certainly by way of some kind of infrastructure that exists in the higher education institution. Financial capital, of course, all kind of monetary resources that have that an institution has. Human capital in terms of faculty and staff and other external stakeholders that may support a particular institution's social capital in terms of the peer group learning, in terms of any kind of external connect of the institution with the community at large or the industry at large, or maybe the international community at large, the natural capital, certainly by way of green, environmentally green, safe, and secure campuses that also need to be a very, very important um, uh, requirement of the higher education institutions today. So it is around these five capitals that we need to plan for three C's. And what are those three C's? Those three C's are the campus, the curriculum, and the community. So how the campus is developed in such a fashion, how the curriculum is also updated time to time in such a fashion, and how the institution reaches out to the community at large in such a fashion that the graduates coming out of a particular institution are able to be able to give more to the society, not just by remaining employed throughout their life, but gainfully and productively employed throughout their life, giving more to the society at large. Now, these kind of uh, these kind of expectations from the higher education sector have led to huge challenges which the sector is facing. Also, the whole challenge of employment and employability of the educated youth has become a very, very huge challenge, particularly in a country like India, for several other additional reasons. And what are those reasons? Let us just take a very, very quick look at that. One, of course, is India's demographic dividend. I'm sure you all know about it, and also many of the speakers before me must have referred to this. We all know that India is a young country, and what is even more important is that in the coming years, it is the age cohort between 15 to 49 years which is likely to grow. Uh, Second, more important aspect is that although India has had a reasonably high rate of growth in the past, and also post-pandemic, it has been projected that very quickly India is going to get back on its economic prosperity. Uh, but all of this has been propelled by the service sector. So India has, in a way, bypassed the traditional mode of economic development where a country moves from the primary sector, that is agriculture, to industry and then to services. So we have in a way bypassed the industry sector and moved from the agriculture to the service sector, which has led to some kind of a problem of distorted job market and education equilibrium. So we are facing a lot of imbalances by way of demand and supply of the workforce, the kind of workforce, the type of workforce, etc., etc. Now, why do I say that these are some kind of equally problems that exist in the labor market? If you look at some of the data, I haven't brought those tables out here because of limited time, and also this would have made it even more cumbersome to understand. So I'm just sharing with you uh, some of the main findings that is based on the data that exists. So if you look at the current graduate workforce in the country, graduate workforce means those who have a college degree. This is concentrated in very limited sectors, these being finance, community and personal services, trade, restaurants, and hotels. Those are IT, yes. Those are the sectors in which the current graduate workforce is concentrated in. And the sectors which are low on graduate employment are agriculture and allied, construction, mining and quarrying, transport, manufacturing, etc. Now, if you make a comparison between these two set of sectors, you can very easily say that while the former provide higher paid jobs and jobs in the of a regular nature, the other set, the set of sectors which are low on graduate employment, usually are low paid sectors and which have a concentration of informal and irregular modes of employment. Also, if you look at the sectors which are high on incremental demand in employment till 2022, which is now almost um, just round the corner now, just one more year left to it. So those sectors which were projected to be high on employment are auto and auto component, building, construction, textiles and clothing, transport and logistics. So these are all, if you look at it, on the low end segment. The other segment is the high-end segment, which comprises of high-tech industries, the I4 sector, which is like the artificial intelligence, the robotics, the machine learning, so on and so forth. So those kind of high-end jobs, high-end technically skilled jobs are going to be more in demand, or else at the lower end, there are going to be demand for drivers, technicians, mechanics, nurses, so on and so forth. So though the middle sector jobs, which largely uh, were the providers of jobs for the young graduate population sometime in the 90s, particularly in the finance and ITES sector, are somehow going to be missing. If not missing, at least they are going to be on a downturn. So then there are two kinds of mismatches. If you look here, there are two kinds of mismatches that I have highlighted. What are those? The available jobs lack matching skilled and qualified youth at one end, and sectors which are high on growth are not on demand by educated youth. So this is the kind of supply demand imbalance that I was referring to. Those jobs which are there in the market, the youth is not qualified enough, because there is a skill deficit, the skill deficit for those kind of jobs. However, those sectors which are going to be high on growth, like the auto component, etc., which are going to have a larger demand for workers in the near future, are not very popular with our educated youth. So those are two important kind of demand supply imbalances or mismatch that exist. Uh, Now there might be a question like, why these kind of mismatch, why this kind of a mismatch has appeared in the Indian educated labor market, and why are we facing this kind of a dilemma, or why are we facing this kind of a challenge? Because it is only then that we will be able to understand how we can meet this rising or growing challenge. One, of course, these are the five reasons as to why this kind of an imbalance has become so acute in our country. One, of course, is low knowledge and training. We all know, and I'm sure some of my previous experts might have certainly mentioned about the lack of formal education and training in vocational skills in the country. So if we look at some of the data that exists, Not even 82% of our educated youth has undergone any kind of a regular formal vocational training. And amongst that 16%, it is only 1% that has had the opportunity to undertake some kind of a formal training in vocational skills. So therefore, the knowledge and training base in our country is pretty low. We also know that we are still struggling to reach our GER in higher education to the levels that developed countries have. There are countries with the gross enrollment ratios in higher education to be as high as 50 to 60, but in India, we are still targeting at reaching 30% GER in higher education. Uh, so those kind of anomalies that exist in our system, low knowledge base and poor training exposure, is one of the reasons for this kind of a demand supply mismatch. The other being disciplinary distortions. Now in one of our studies, which was uh, presented in a dialogue series organized by British Council in London, where there were also participants from across various other nations. We observed that not only in India, but in many parts of the world, this kind of a disciplinary distortion exists. Now, what is this disciplinary distortion? What we find is, sorry, I think I pressed something. So I was talking about disciplinary distortions. So what do we mean by disciplinary distortions is that those disciplines in which you find uh, a greater concentration of the students do not in a way enter or are not in a way able to enter the labor market in future. Now, why does that happen? For example, if we look in India's case, the percentage of students in technical and professional programs are much lesser as compared to those in general academic disciplines, arts and pure sciences, etc. However, when it comes to the job market, it is the technical and professional qualified graduates who are more in demand. What can be the reasons behind this? So, in one of our studies, we found that why is it so that these handful of technical and professional graduates are not just high in demand by the employer segment in the technical and professional fields, but also in other kind of jobs. Why is it so? The kind of survey results that we received said two things. One, it is these students who are found to be better in terms of employability skills, which comprise of not just technical knowledge, but also, as I mentioned, a lot of generic skills that we are talking about. So this set of students are better on employability skills in general, and also they have a better exposure in terms of the kind of exposure which is given to them from their personal household background, because they come from better backgrounds, economic and socio-cultural backgrounds. Also, the kind of institutions that they have attended have provided for some kind of a better external exposure to them, which is the reason as to why they fare better in the job market. So those kind of disciplinary distortions exist. Those who are high in demand are coming are lesser in supply from the higher education sector, and those who are higher in supply, the arts, commerce, and general academic stream graduates, are lesser in demand by the employer segment. Coming to the third kind of distortions which we find to be existing are the quality distortions. Now, when we talk about quality distortions, it is the quality of higher education institutions. Now, you will all agree that there are only a handful of good quality higher education institutions, and majority of them are very much lacking in the kind of standardized quality requirements that we often refer to or talk about, whether it be as per the requirements of our education policy or as per the general requirements and demands by the employer segment. So when a majority of the students are coming out of low quality higher education institutions, certainly the kind of quality distortions are likely to only aggravate until and unless the quality gap is plugged soon. The fourth is the degree diploma distortion. Now, as against a number of countries where the degree holders and the diploma holders, the ratio between the degree holders and the diploma holders is of the order of 1:3. Like if one person has a higher education degree in hand, against that one person there would be three diploma holders. While in India, it is just the reverse. It is this degree diploma ratio is reversed to the order of 2:1, and that also has happened only in the recent past. Why is it so? I'm sure since you all belong to the higher education sector, we have experienced, as well as there is a lot of literature that supports this observation, that the kind of social stigma that is attached to diploma and certificate courses in India is of a nature which doesn't exist, or in fact in any other country. So that is the very reason as to why people are not ready to go for diploma. Uh, uh, in fact, the preference is for a degree course and not for a diploma course. In recent times, in fact, there has been an increase in the demand for some specific skill-based diploma certificate courses, but these two are in addition to the degree that a student may be earning. So it is the diploma is not going to replace the degree education in India. It is only going to be an add-on to the degree education in India. Now, this kind of a distortion also exists. So there is a lot of rat running behind a higher education degree, whether it is of any use or it is not of any use, whether you are able to actually improve your skills in terms of the kinds that are being demanded by the labor market or not. One is not that much worried or bothered about that. This botheration or concern comes into light only if you have a basic degree in hand and then you want to add on to your degree by seeking some skill-based diploma certificates. So that also needs to be corrected in our country. And then lastly, of course, the equity distortions. We have all seen that the new education policy also talks about the equity concerns, particularly for the now the group is known as SEDGs, the socio-economically disadvantaged groups. So those who are coming from various ethnic backgrounds, poor, socio-culturally poor, economically poor, backward backgrounds, regions, rural versus urban regions, remote locations, children with disabilities, gender, all of this are to be corrected in terms of the equity concerns. Uh, Now, how then these kind of distortions that we have discussed get translated into fears by the students? Uh, do you have any question or someone wants to intervene here? or shall I continue? All right, I think I heard someone saying something, but let me then continue. So, yeah, so all these kind of distortions then get translated into fears among students and apprehensions about their own future. In another study which we did, I just want to share some of our findings over here with you. Now, if you look at this particular bar diagram, what you see is 60% of our graduate students fear lack of job opportunity in future, and 73% of them do believe that they need some kind of an additional training because uh, despite the fact that 74% of them also believe that they are not studying in a college which is not a standardized college, or which is not a college which is not got a good reputation. So 74% of them believe that their college has a good reputation, and yet they felt that they need additional training because they feared lack of job opportunity in future. They also agree that there is lack of practical application in the kind of teaching and learning they are experiencing in the colleges, and they also fear 63% of them agreed with us that they did not have the kind of required skills. So those are the kind of fears and apprehensions that exist in the mind of our student community. In order to get a little deeper insight into how these fears and apprehensions get translated into the experience when our young graduates enter the job market, we also spoke to some new employees, those who had just joined their jobs within a period of 2 to 3 years of experience that they had. And what we found was, if you look at the second bar diagram, the horizontal bar diagram, which is represented over here, 78, more than 78% of them agreed that there was a mismatch between the course curriculum and the requirements of the job market. Also, 67% of them said that campus provided sufficient opportunities and enriching environment to enhance employability skills. Now, these two are very, very interesting findings. Let me also add on to our third finding, which says that 54% of the students said that off-campus support and coaching was needed to improve their employability skills. Now, very interesting findings. On one hand, they feel that the campuses are giving them good kind of education, yet they require some kind of an external help in terms of coaching them or preparing them for the world of work. And they are also very, very clear about the fact that the course curriculum does not match the job market requirements. But when we talked to these new employees, about just a quarter of them said that they had actually taken some kind of off-campus coaching and training. Now, there were two very disheartening reasons that were given by them. One was the fact that very few recognized quality institutions exist that can impart that kind of a coaching or training to the students. That's one reason. And number two, even the ones that do exist are so costly that it is beyond the reach of majority of our students to go for quality training and coaching for the purpose of improving their employability skills. So these are some of the areas that we as higher education providers, planners, and leaders need to look into. So then we try to categorize the kind of gaps that exist between the industry needs and the students to be job ready. and we name them as three kinds of gaps: threefold gaps, the awareness gap, the perception gap, and the skills gap. Now, how do I explain these? So, awareness gap, certainly the students are hardly, neither, not just the students, even the teachers, even the higher education leaders, the planners, the policymakers, uh, none of the stakeholders are aware of the kind of skill needs which are going to emerge in the labor market. What are the kind of jobs that are going to be in demand in future? So then what happens? Most of the course choices which are being made by the students are based on the past trends and not on the future expectations. So that kind of an awareness gap needs to be filled. Certainly we cannot leave this role to the higher education sector uh, only. In fact, it is important to develop a very robust and maybe some kind of a, real-time labor market information system in the country, which certainly has to be linked to the higher education portals so that the higher education providers are also able to be aware of the kind of labor market demands that are going to arise in future, and then they can guide the students accordingly. The second kind of gap that we found was in terms of perception gap, and the third gap that we found was in terms of skills gap. Now, what is this? As I said, like the kind of awareness gap I just explained to you, these are just some of the kind of trades that are top on the list. So those are the kind of jobs which are going to be deficient of workforce in their future. So skilled trades, engineers, technicians, sales representatives, those are the top 10 jobs. Uh, but what we find is, though new trades and sectors are emerging in India and outside, it is the demand for professionally and technically qualified at the graduate plus level which is going to increase. So sooner or later, the threshold level of education required for any kind of a good quality regular job is going to be minimum higher education graduate qualification. So undergraduate bachelor's degree will become a minimum requirement very soon. And uh, so I have already explained to you how the student choices are guided by past trends and not the future projections. So that was some kind of what we called as awareness gap. Coming to the second kind of gap, which I just referred to, that was the perception gap. Now, how do we define the perception gap is what is it that the employers perceive to be important, and what is it that the students and teachers perceive to be important. So if you look at this particular diagram, you can clearly see uh, the perception gap between the employers and the employees. So those are both from the industry sector is the least. In fact, they are very close in terms of the perception with regards to what kind of skills are more important at the time of recruitment or for recruitment as compared to students and teachers. Uh, of course, the difference is not of a very, very high order, because on a scale of 0 to 1, the gap is only 0.79 for between students and the employers, and 0.77 between teachers and the employers. Now, however, what is important to be understood over here is that the gap in terms of understanding the importance of generic skills, the people related skills, the conceptualization skills, the personal skills, which are considered more important by the industry sector, and they are considered lesser important by the students and employees. uh, Also, the teachers have assigned a very, very high degree of importance to foreign language skills, while the employers do not attach that high order importance to foreign language skills when it comes to when it comes to recruitment of students at lower levels, low end jobs, at starting points. Of course, foreign language skills and foreign exposure have been quoted by employers to be important at senior level positions, and also in certain sectors, but not in all the sectors. So what we found is that the perception regarding the importance of certain skills, if you look at uh, these four areas that have been outlined over here, the major areas of perception gap that exist between the employers, students, and teachers are with respect to people related skills, starting with the highest order being conceptualization skills, followed by people related skills, managerial skills, personal skills, and then ability to adapt. So, uh, what I mean by saying is, while students and teachers feel that the marks earned in the examinations are very, very important. So in a way, the academic knowledge that the students are getting from the higher education institutions are very, very important at the time of recruitment. The employers are of a differing opinion. They feel that beyond a particular minimum threshold level of marks that the students obtain in their examinations, they are only looking for some of these additional skills rather than just the examination performance of the students. While the students were certainly of the opinion that the marks matter a lot, because it is not simply this that if they have marks beyond below a certain threshold level, they are not even allowed to sit in the campus selections. But even while the campus selections are made, a merit list is prepared on the basis of the CGPA that has been received by the students based on their academic performance throughout the year. In fact, throughout the course period that they have undertaken. Uh, so those kind of perception gaps also exist between the teachers, students, and the employer segment. The third kind of gaps which is like more easily understood and also mapped by now a number of agencies, is the skill gaps. So skill gaps, basically, we define them by way of the satisfaction that the employers have in terms of the skills that the students come with. So how well prepared are the students? Are the employers satisfied with the kind of skills that the students come with? And these skill gaps also have been found to be of a very, very high order, but not in terms of knowledge and technical skills. If you look at these three blocks out here, in terms of knowledge and technical skills, the employers have been reasonably satisfied, with the students. Also, in terms of the technical know-how, the degree of satisfaction has been reasonably good. In terms of functional skills like how do you work with your fingers, with your hands, in terms of functional skill, how do you apply your knowledge to practical purposes. Even in terms of functional skills, they're not that very disappointed. However, they are relatively less satisfied. But generally, these kind of skills are imparted or taken care of by the industry segment themselves during the immediate period post recruitment. So during the probationary period or various kinds of trainings that they provide to the new employees, those kind of functional skills are granted to them during those training programs. Also, from time to time, as the employees grow up in their career ladder, the companies keep organizing some kind of trainings to impart functional skills. But what the industry segment is most concerned about, and they say and they feel, it is something which they cannot impart once a fully grown up, mature person has already entered their company, is the set of personal and soft skills. So the communication skills, honesty, discipline, ethics, uh, all of these come within the personal and soft skills. Creativity, all of this they think is lacking in our educated youth, and it is these skills that the higher education sector is now expected to impart to the students, which I personally, and many of the studies that have been done across the world also have agreed to this kind of a proposition, that it is beyond the reach of the higher education sector alone to be focusing on imparting personal skills. So higher education sector cannot actually focus on imparting personal skills. It may just come in by way of some kind of an additional uh, add-on kind of experience learning that the higher education sector can provide. But the basic job of higher education sector certainly is about granting them knowledge and technical experience, as well as practical exposure, to be able to make productive use of this knowledge and technical experience that they gain on campuses. Uh, now, but if you look at the expectations and role of the higher education institutions, our study also proved that campus facilities with respect to career grooming have a higher impact uh, than marks or than the academic examinations which are conducted on the employability index of the student community. Also, the job satisfaction index has a greater correlation with the campus facilities of career grooming in the higher education institutions. So what we found is the employees with better university experience index were more likely to get campus placements, and those employees who came into the jobs through campus placements were also better off in their jobs. Those were also able to get promotions, perform better in their jobs. So those kind of learnings that we received from our studies also gave us some kind of an idea as to how the higher education institutions should try to mold their teaching ways. Also, let me share one more important finding with you, and then we will quickly close down and have some questions and discussions from you all. The second thing that we wanted to know was, uh, what are the employers' expectations from the higher education institutions, and how willing are they to participate? So, what is it that they do with the higher education sector, when we are often talking about the academia industry interface to be so important? But what is it that the employers think about it? So we found that 80% of the employers agree that engagement with higher education institution is important and also beneficial, but it is only 37% who were engaged with some kind of an academic institution. And that too was not any kind of a mandatory professional requirement for them, but it was only out of their personal interest that they voluntarily were offering their services to by getting involved with the academic institutions in an informal manner to a large extent. Uh, Now, when we look at the kind of um, expectations that the higher education, the employer segment has with the higher education sector, these are the kinds. If you look at the ranks from rank 1 to rank 7, the employer segment expects that the higher education sector should include practical experience in their courses. It should include sector specific work placements to become an integral part. There should be industry experience provided to the teaching faculty as well. The courses should be made more relevant, so they believe in industry oriented courses. Industry personnel as part-time and adjunct faculty. So they also want that industry personnel should get opportunities to teach in the higher education institutions. There should be variety of ways in which the relationship between graduates and companies should be strengthened. And very importantly, they also said there should be an increase in the duration of internships. Now, if you look at all of these seven expectations that the industry sector has from the higher education institutions, you will agree with me that none of this is possible until and unless the employer segment or the industry sector is also forthcoming, is also proactive in instituting and sustaining all kinds of relationships that will cover these seven areas with the higher education sector. Very quickly, coming to my last few slides. What has gone wrong? So this is the kind of framework of sustainable employability for higher education graduates which we developed in order to plug the existing gaps that we just talked about. And this is, if you see it here, it's quite a complex one. So, because there are so many arrows going from here to there, there to here, here to there. So it's not just the higher education institutions, but the career development agencies, in-house training, external training, executive education, initial basic degree, all of this, how they can be brought into the framework to provide a, a wholesome four-pronged exposure to the students in the higher education sector. This four-pronged exposure will include industry and employers, international higher education academia, the society at large, and also the role that alumni can play in providing this kind of an exposure. With my last slide, I would just conclude by saying that certainly the industry academia interface is very, very imperative when we are talking about plugging the employability skill gaps. But if you look at the kind of industry academia interface that exists of date, you can divide them into these four types on the basis of the processes. So with respect to the administrative process, these kind of interfaces may be of a random nature, they may be of a short-term nature, or they may be of a long-term nature. Now, random nature means someone, I am known to someone, or some other faculty is known to me, and that person is visiting my city. I might just reach out to that person and request him to come over and deliver a kind of a random lecture or something. So those kind of random things, short term, of course, when the kind of program that we are doing right now is also a short term kind of an interaction that we are providing to our faculty and similar kind of exposure we can provide to our students. What is missing is the long term interface that we must plan uh, between the industry and the academia. Similarly, if you look at it on a technical grounds, they may be of an informal nature and a formal nature. Now here also it is the interface of a formal nature which is largely missing. When we come to the financial processes, we may find the programs to be of a self-financed nature, of a sponsored nature. Sponsors may be the private companies, they may be government, they may be NGOs, whatever, or those which are jointly financed. Now, very rarely we find a sponsored industry academia interface. Mostly they are either self-financed by way of self-financing courses, etc., where the students are bearing the costs, or they may be jointly financed where the companies are also partly bearing the cost. Very few higher education institutions have any kind of a sponsored industry academia interface working. Uh, on the basis of purpose, these kind of interfaces may be for teaching, it may be for research, it may be for training purposes. So as of now, what we find is uh, at some places, this kind of an interface has taken up in the field of training, but very rarely in teaching and research. For research, it is only in select elite institutions, that too more in the technical education sector, that you would find industry academia interface to be active. So these are some of the areas and aspects that I thought I can share with you, and maybe we can collaboratively work together to strengthen these gaps so that we are able to bring forth better prepared students, not for just the labor market, but also for the economy and community as a whole. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much for such a patient hearing.